All right. Hello, Jason Shapiro with crowdedmarketreport.com. And based on some suggestions from various people, both in and out of the Crowded Market Report, we decided to do a new segment once a month or so, where we are going to talk to some traders that we know, people that are on the Crowded Market Report, just to sort of kind of do like a little market wizard interview type of thing and hear from different people from different backgrounds that trade different things and trade different processes and just see where they're at and how things are going and how they approach all this because it's a great little um, pool of people that we have to choose from. So we can talk to a bunch of different people that do a bunch of different things. So today we have Mr. Justin, um, who I believe joined CMR only a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken. But has been a
Yep.
good active member on our Discord and has some interesting things to say. And so we thought we'd speak to him and see what's up. So welcome, Justin.
Jason, thank you for having me. I appreciate you giving me your time, taking this time.
All right, back at you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into trading and what you do or what you're trying to do and how it's been going and the whole story.
Yeah, so actually, I've only been trading, I would say about 6 years. I'm actually an educator. I teach high school history and government, and I there's a long story with that. I didn't know that I wanted to be a teacher, but I just kind of fell into it. But I had this formative experience when I was in my early college years, right around the financial crisis. My parents had been subject to predatory lending, and so we lost our house, and there's this whole thing with that. And probably the weirdest thing was leaving. I was the last person with my brother to leave my house, and we had to leave our keys in the mailbox and walk away. And my parents moved to China after that for 2 years. And so it was the strangest, most I can't even like put words to it, but it was. I remember that at that moment I said I never want to be surprised again, and that kind of started a little bit of this journey where years down the road I started getting involved in like looking at the economy, trying to learn as much as I could about how economics works and how money works and all that. And then I remember, one year I read Rich Dad Poor Dad while while in on vacation in Spain actually, and thinking to myself, oh well, I need to start putting my money to work. And then I saw a video shortly after that where I saw this guy. He was talking about, I forget his name. He said that when you go to work, you trade your time for dollars, but the government inflates your dollars away, and that's not right. And I remember thinking, like, I looked at my savings account and I'm like, I get 0.02%. Like, what in the world? And so that kind of started my foray into looking into trading and investing, which was really just, I just wanted to put money to work so that it wasn't sitting in my bank account losing over time. And that kind of started the seeds into investing and trading. And then when I really jumped in 2019, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, just like anyone else, I had no idea what I was doing. Um, I started with some small stocks. I remember I opened a Robinhood account and I bought PG&E because I heard that they were, that somebody was saying they were going to go bankrupt, and then somebody else was like, no, they're not. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll buy PG&E, which is a disaster of a company if you've never heard of PG&E. But but anyway, and they were just dealing with all the fires and stuff, so I felt like they got hit enough. So I thought I would just buy PG&E, and then I bought Verizon because I tried to use the old logic of, oh, buy what you know, buy the products you know, and then I bought Exxon Mobil because somebody was like, oh, you have to buy stocks that pay dividends, and that was basically it. And then I discovered options right away because I made the mistake of listening to this podcast, which was a disaster of a podcast because the guy who ran it was an entertainer, and he's already a millionaire. So he doesn't, he's talking about covered calls. I have no idea what any of this stuff is, but I found that I could do it on Robinhood. And that, you can imagine, ended up in disaster. And then 2020 hits and the COVID crash happens. And this was my crash course in emotional trading, um, which blew me out pretty bad. And then, the market was coming back. And then I learned about levered and inverse ETFs, which then blew me out again because I started listening to all this bearish doom porn about insolvency and all that. And you probably remember what that was like when that was going on.
I do.
So then after blowing out for I think the second or third time shortly after that, and I'm a small trader, I'm a small account, so I mean blowing out's a pretty big deal. So and pretty easy to do, honestly. So
I got news for you. Blowing out as a big account is a pretty big deal as well. But go ahead.
yeah. After that, I said, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to learn. So I kind of went through a couple of different stages. I went through the technical analysis stage where I watched all these videos, listened to all these guys talking about, resistance and support and chart patterns and things like that. And, I thought that that was the recipe. I just needed to get really good at reading charts and then I would be able to make all kinds of money. And then I kept finding that, hey, sometimes lines are support and sometimes they're not. And if you don't like, I knew nothing about risk management. So I knew the levels, but I didn't know how to risk manage around those levels. So then I started blowing out again because I was putting all these huge bets on technical analysis. Then I had this little foray into crypto, which is a whole thing. And I don't need to go into all of that. Um, but anyway, crypto is honestly full of a bunch of frauds who, people made a lot of money on, you know, telling people that they knew how to read special charts about like on-chain analytics and stuff like that. And they don't really have any real value to offer. So I kind of got out of that pretty quickly. And then my second stage was, well, I need to understand why the market screwed me all these times. So then I went into macro. And then that turned me into a doomer bear for a while at the worst possible time in 2021, right?
Hmm.
But I was learning a lot about macro. I mean, it was all of this stuff. It was helpful. It was helping to form more knowledge. But the problem that I kept having was I thought that this was like the silver bullet, the answer to all of my trading problems. So I kept struggling through that. And then kind of I went from that into looking into sentiment and positioning. And I think the thing that I understood that if you could figure out how people were positioned, then you could make more like safer bets risk to reward wise. But I just didn't know how to read positioning. I didn't know what data to look at or if there was any data. And you have all these people who talk about options data, and you have all these people who, look at the ETF flows and all this stuff. And I'm like, how do I get that? I don't know how to get that. But I was trying to look into that. And so this is, I start getting better at all of this and trying to put it all together. And then, but my problem still was I was not a good risk manager. And one of the things that like I eventually came across you actually this is actually kind of funny in an interview. I had no idea who you were. I was actually in the middle of reading all the Market Wizards books, but I had no idea who you were. But I heard a soundbite from this interview where you basically talked about like always opposing people. I can't remember which podcast it was. It was a couple of years ago.
Sounds like all of them, but yeah.
And I, uh, and I immediately said to myself, I gotta listen to this guy. And, uh, and what blew me away, like I felt like I connected a lot with kind of your mindset about, looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to do the opposite. Because I kind of have a little bit of that to myself as well. My wife would tell you, I always have to play devil's advocate. I always have to argue the other side. Um, and so one of the things that I realized was, you know, I was trying too hard to be everyone else as a trader and as an investor. And I needed to figure out the things that work for me. I needed to figure out how my personality would align more into, different styles of trading. And I had to do a lot of testing and figure it out. So for a couple of years, basically since 2022 is a great year to start learning this because of the bear market. But so I start looking into like, okay, who am I? How does that work out with trading? And, I teach history, and as kind of like a side thing, I like, to explore psychology. So all the sentiment stuff makes a lot of sense to me. And um, taking the opposite side and wondering when it's appropriate to take the opposite side, like that all made sense to me as far as my personality goes. So I started really diving into that. And then again, like I said, I came across your one of your interviews, started watching some of your videos, and that kind of inspired me to, and this is where honestly I've made the most gains over the last couple of years in my investing and in my trading, because what stuck out to me the most about what you said was talking about risk management, and being wrong, and how you're likely to be wrong uh, over time more than you are right. But it's about maximizing what you get when you're right and minimizing what you lose when you're wrong. And it seems like rocket science, but it's not, you know? And then what I figured out was the missing link is the discipline to be able to carry it out. So um so I appreciated from you that you talked about like all of what could go wrong, but that it was a good risk to reward bet. And but you'll lose small and you'll win big. And that made sense to me. So I started trying to apply those principles, and um and kind of here I am now where I came off of 2024, which was my most successful year ever. Um Applying a lot of those principles of risk management, figuring out who I was as a trader and what systems and strategies work best for my personality and what I'm looking to do. Um, and and yeah, so I mean that's kind of like as briefly as I can do it. Like, so I mean I've blown out a bunch of times, and I mean just like everyone else does, I think I'm smarter than everyone else when I do something that's good, and then I want to quit when everything goes bad. But if there's one thing that I think, is one of my greatest strengths, is that I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to grow. And that more than anything has kept me going. And I think that's why I've been able to be successful over time now, especially more recently, because I figured out where I was making mistakes. And I said, I'm not going to keep making those mistakes, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to learn. And I'm not only going to learn about, the markets, and I'm not only going to learn about all the data and anything out there, I'm also going to keep being a learner, and an investigator of myself. Um, and I'm a person of faith, and one of the most interesting things to me is this idea that our hearts are deceitful. So you're always having to learn about yourself. You're always having to check yourself. You're always having to question yourself. And if once I realized that I was my own greatest enemy when it came to trading, like everything has gotten better since then. It's not easy still, but it's gotten a lot better. So that's kind of like, the journey, I guess, as it were. So now I'm just continuing to try to stay disciplined and trying to incorporate all the different strategies that I feel like I want to utilize. And I'm trying to make the most of, I just had a daughter recently. And now I'm trying to think of for the long term, how do I preserve wealth and grow wealth so that I can not only like, have a retirement, but I can also take care of my daughter and take care of her future and all that. So nothing like having a daughter to give you a long-term mindset, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't even know what to say. Amazing. You really, you said it all, truthfully. I can go through some of the points, but I mean, first of all, blowing out more than once. Um, that's almost like to me, I've done that. I did that in my first 10 years of trading. Um,
Hmm.
that's to me, that's the necessary tuition. I've
Yeah.
always done that, and people blow out and they get frustrated and they quit and all that. But you know, I've actually had discussions with with Hazem, my partner in CMR, where I always feel like we should screen people that are trying to join CMR and only allow people in that have blown out at least once or twice, because I don't think they're really going to be ready for the things that we preach on here
Yeah.
until they've blown out, right?
Yeah.
Because if you haven't blown out and all you're doing is making money, well, then you don't need what I'm saying. You just do what you're doing, right? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. They say
so
failure is the
I think
greatest
that
teacher. So,
it is. There's no question about it. So, and it's also, at least for those like what you were saying about those who want to consistently learn from their mistakes and get better, failure is the greatest teacher. You know, if you're going to keep doing the same thing and blaming other things, then it's not the greatest teacher, right? What do they
yeah.
say? Doing the same thing again and again and looking for a different outcome is the definition of insanity, right? But if you are using that stuff to improve, then I think failure is the greatest teacher. Um, so I think everything that you said was just was phenomenal. I really do. And I think it sounds to me like you're on the right path to me. At least I think so. Um, and the point that you make about you came to the um, to the conclusion that this is not about being right or wrong. I mean, this is something that, as you know, I preach almost
Yeah.
every conversation I have, right? This is
Yeah.
about making $5 when you're right and losing $1 when you're wrong. And therefore, you can be right less than 50% of the time, and you can still do very well. That's what trading is. I don't care what anybody has to say. I'm telling you right now, that's what trading is. Whether
Mhm.
you can find those situations or whether I can help you find this, that's another conversation. Okay. But that is what trading is. Okay. It's nothing to do with any of the other bullcrap. Uh,
Mhm.
I think the thing on technical analysis is very interesting. Everybody sort of knows my thoughts on technical analysis, which is that from a psychology point of view, human beings do have a long history of trying to find patterns in randomness. It makes
Yeah.
us feel comfortable. It makes us feel like, we're seeing some sort of something in randomness. Nobody likes randomness. You know what I mean? Everybody wants there to be something, that can make us feel a little bit more in control. Um, and I find with technical analysis, it's when people lose money doing that, it's not that the technical analysis didn't work. It's that they just read the charts wrong, right? It's a great escape. You know?
Hmm. Yeah.
And look, I in my learning years read book after book on technical analysis. I still have Edwards and McGee right behind me
Hmm.
here, and I still have Technical Analysis on the Futures Market by John J. Murphy, which to me is the
Yeah.
greatest technical analysis book. I still have it right behind me here. I've read them multiple times. It never worked for me. It doesn't mean it can't work for other people. If it
Right.
works, I always say, if it works for you, then it's great. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I didn't go into it when I started trying to do technical analysis saying, oh, this is a bunch of crap. I went, hey, maybe this is just like you. Maybe this is the answer. Let's give it a shot, right? Didn't
Mm.
work. So I kind of had to move on. But yeah, I think all of those things and the psychology part that you mentioned, I think is incredibly important, right? This is, as I've said a million times, this is a battle of this and really nothing else, right?
Yeah.
Risk management thing is here, right? The whole ability to take small losses and let gains ride, it's all here, right? And it's very, very difficult. It goes against, I think you would agree, almost every single piece of human nature that goes on in our brain, everything that we have learned, right? You can never go broke taking a profit. Okay. You know, like everything that we have learned as humans, it goes against all of that, which is what makes this so hard.
Yeah.
Market doesn't act most of the time in a logical way. And it's because I think what people forget, even though it's on page one of any finance textbook, is that the market is a discounting mechanism. So, if you can see this because it's logical, right? Well, then everybody else can see it as well. So therefore, it is discounted in the market. So therefore, there's not an edge to doing it.
Hmm.
I think that's such an important lesson for people to understand. I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand that, but that's just the fact. And most things out there that we deal in our day-to-day lives are not a discounting mechanism, right? So we're used to things like that, right? Hey, here's an issue. Here's my side of the issue. Here's your side of the issue. We can make our arguments, and then something's going to happen, right? Um, but the market discounts all of these opinions, right? So trying to find an edge in that over time is very difficult. I mean, clearly,
Yeah.
and again, the mind will play with you because you can make the argument the stock market's going up here because of this, and this, because of my political beliefs and my economic beliefs or whatever your belief is that's going to make the market go up. And then it does go up. And then you're like, oh, see, I knew. That's what kills you ultimately.
Yeah.
You didn't know. The market's either going to go up or down, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
I
I
mean, being
would say
right
you
sometimes
can
is,
flip a coin and get heads, call heads, get heads. That didn't make you right. It meant you
yeah,
had a
being
fifty-fifty
right
chance.
sometimes is the worst thing to happen to you.
That's correct because it puts that thing in your brain that, you're going to be right a lot. And then you're going to skip out on your risk management. And then that's what's going to kill you. And we see it all the time with people. There's people out there that have very high winning to losing trades, but lose
Mhm.
money.
Yeah.
They make a dollar, 80
Lose
times.
five.
They make a dollar 80 times and then they lose, $20 the other five
Mhm.
times, right? And that's a recipe for disaster. But that is what people do when they want to be right. They want to have a high winning percentage because that means that they're right more than they're wrong. We always say, be wrong, make money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this game is, making money.
Yeah.
Not saying that making money is the be all and end all of life, but it is the be all and end all of trading the markets. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what the goal is here, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that the points you bring up and the way that you learn them, like he didn't come and join us. He's only been with us for a few months, right? He learned these lessons on his own, and I think that's so important that you can actually see these things as you go. A lot of people, okay, Justin, Jason, okay, spent years losing money in the markets over time. I had plenty of times when I started where I made a bunch of money, but in the end, after 10 years, I had gotten nowhere and that wasn't going to work, right? So you have to have this open mind to say, what is it that I need to learn? What is it that I'm missing?
Yeah. And I think, one of the reasons I chose to join CMR was the real time access and the real time community, like talking about these things in real time, I think was really important. And honestly, as a check against my own thinking, um, I think that has been really helpful because I think sometimes I want to go on, and sometimes maybe in the Discord we get a little overreactive to the intraday stuff, but sometimes I want to go in there and I want to type something, and then as I'm typing it, I see what everybody else is posting, and I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to type this. This is irrelevant. Or it's just a really good check because I mean, as much as I try to stay disciplined, and actually, most of my trading process now, I have tried to do everything I can to systematize and remove my own psychology and remove my own emotion. Um, like to be able to check something against my own emotions and my own thinking has been one of the probably the most valuable thing about, being part of the Discord, being part of CMR. So that has been really helpful, I think. Um, and then
Yeah,
like,
I love to hear that because truthfully, we started this thing just because a lot of people after I was in Market Wizards were asking me if I could help them. And I've said it a million times, but I didn't even know what Discord was. And Hazem, who runs the business, did the Discord. And to me, 4 years later, the Discord has become so valuable, not just to you, to me, to everybody, because it's just like you say, it helps check your emotions, right? It helps you see where we do it all the time. We talk about it on
mhm.
Discord all the time. Everybody's like, oh my God, this market's ripping. There's the top of the day, right? We
Yep.
see it and we always point it out. And we're not, saying you're an idiot. We're making fun of each other in order
Yeah.
to point out. And I do it too, right?
Yeah.
This was not what I pictured when we started this.
Mm,
But as you know now, as a member, I say it all the time. The most valuable thing here is not Jason Shapiro, the market wizard, telling us where to trade, right? To me, the most valuable thing of this has become the community, right? And as I'm sure we do these talks like on Sunday night, and I'm
yep.
consistently, I'll give my views, and I think my views are worth something because I've done this for a long time, right? But I'm constantly like, everybody else, please chime in because the whole is much better than the one guy.
Yeah.
Let's hear it from everybody, and slowly as people join and get comfortable, they start to speak up because they have to be willing to be wrong in order to speak up, right? And that's a
Yeah.
hard thing for people to do, right?
Oh
But
yeah. I'm a
slowly,
teacher. I totally get it.
right, but slowly people are becoming comfortable with that. Like I'm
Yeah.
comfortable, I'm wrong all the time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm really just trying to get it out there so that we can then discuss the
Hmm.
psychology and all that. And like I say, the weekly newsletter that goes out on CMR, all it is what I have been writing for myself for 20 years. And the reason
Yeah.
I write for myself for 20 years is because then I get to go back and see all the times I was wrong
Hmm.
and hopefully learn from that, you
Yeah.
know?
That kind of access to a mentor, it is an invaluable part of the experience. I mean, if all of us didn't hear you and see you on a weekly basis saying what you think, but then also saying, "Hey, I could be wrong," and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All I have to do is make money, and I need to stay disciplined to a process. It's funny. Most of these people online, other programs or services, most of them are technical analysis based. And I always have this joke that technical analysts are always bullish and macro people are always bearish and fundamental people are still waiting for the earnings release, so they'll tell you later. So
Yeah. My,
but it's true, like
my
that
favorite one was the
people.
only people that get rich off of technical analysis are ones that sell technical analysis courses. But
Yep.
I know that will piss a lot of people off because I know there are a lot of people that will say that they make money doing
Yeah.
technical analysis. And like I say, if you do, then that's terrific. Screw
Yeah.
what I have to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I appreciate all those comments because that's really what was in my mind, what we set out to do here. I never set out to be a tip sheet, right? I don't
Right.
believe that, right?
Yeah.
Um, you can't trade my process because you're not me. Just like I can't really successfully trade your process because I'm not you, right? Which goes back to what you said. You have to
Hmm.
figure out who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. But no matter how you're trading or what your process is, the lessons of trading, risk management, this and that, are always the same, right?
Hmm.
That's really what we tried to do here. It's not about being a tip sheet. It's about here's a guy that's gone through it for 30 something years, right? And has, at least to this point, come out the other end, right?
Right.
Here's the lessons that I have learned. And you're going through the same thing that I went through because we're all human beings and we're all going to go through the same thing. So hopefully I can help accelerate some of those lessons by passing on A, the lessons that I learned along the way, and B, by pointing out as these things happen, here's an example of exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Hmm.
Hopefully and that was really the whole idea of this thing, quite frankly. So it's really nice to hear you say that that's what you're getting out of it, because not everybody does get out of it, does get
Yeah.
that. I think it takes a certain personality. It takes a certain open-mindedness. It takes a certain willingness to learn, and most people don't want that anyway. What they want is, I don't care. Just tell me where S&Ps are going next week.
Hmm.
And my answer is I don't have a clue what S&Ps are going to go do next week,
Yeah.
right? And as you see with most of my stuff, it's become more and more so, I think, as I've done this. But I'm really about raising what are the questions rather than what are the answers, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So at least we can know what the questions are. I think if anything, that's where my market experience come from. I really have I think a good grasp on what are the questions here, and then let's let the market tell us what the answer is, right?
Hmm.
I think that's what it's really all about, whereas like I say, most people are not looking for that. I don't care what the questions are, Jason, just tell me the answer so I can make money. Okay, well, then we're not the right service for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what has helped me is, as far as CMR especially, is, I have this history background. I studied history and I teach history. So like something I teach my students on a yearly basis, we have to talk about, the philosophers, and philosophy like is a lover of wisdom. And there's two kinds of wisdom. There's wisdom that you gain through your own mistakes and experience, and then there's the wisdom, like it's better if you can acquire wisdom by paying attention to the mistakes of other people and being able to use what other people have learned. And so, you have to have that desire, that willingness to, it's like I talked about it earlier, like I had to figure out where I went wrong, but that's only half the battle. Like I can look at what I did wrong, but if I don't have the will and the discipline to carry out the change and the solution, it doesn't mean anything. And if we learn from you or from someone, but we don't put into practice the things that we learn, what's the point? So I think I have a good mindset for, wanting to seeking the wisdom of other people, and then having the like growing in the discipline to actually enact that stuff. I think that's the biggest thing. So people got to have that. Otherwise, all they're going to look for is a tip sheet. All they're going to look
Yeah,
for
and
is
that's why
the answer.
again, that's why the number of successful traders is a very small number,
Yeah.
because the number of people that are willing to do what you're talking about is a very small number. Whether they're doing
Hmm.
it here or whether they're doing it somewhere else, you know what I mean? That's up to them. But I think your points are exactly right. And I know me, I unfortunately was never willing to learn from the mistakes of others. I was the kid, right? That wasn't going to listen to anybody. And I had to learn through my own mistakes, and that's most people, I think. We're all trying to break away from our father and become our own person type of thing. I didn't listen to anything
Yeah.
my father said. And when I look back, now that he has passed away, I think, man, if I had listened to that guy, I would have been in a hell of a lot better situation. And I look at my son, who is just like me in that term. I can't even say anything to him that I would like him to do, because the second I say it, he rules it out, right? So I can't say it. But truthfully, I always feel like if that kid had listened to me along the way, I'm telling you, he would have been in high school and he would have had money in his pocket. He would
Oh
have had
yeah.
a looking girl in school. He would have been getting straight A's and he would have crushed it. But
Oh yeah.
he wasn't going to listen to me, because we have to, most of us have to learn lessons by ourselves.
I wanted to come back to, because this is part of my learning process. Because one of the things that you've mentioned, you talked about the technical analysis part, and I know you have your views on that. I think one of the things that I've learned, because I think what happens sometimes is you try something and it doesn't work, so then you abandon it. So part of the skill is being able to find the value in the things that you either don't like, or in the things that fail, or in the things that are problematic. And so back to the technical analysis, because so many traders lose money, but so many people are pattern seeking, what I have found to be the value in the technical analysis is that it doesn't mean that the line is the law, but it does tell you where everyone else's psychology is.
Yes.
And as somebody who like really likes to, I'm a huge observer of people and I love all the psychology of it. Like that's when I start paying attention to technical analysis, it has nothing to do with, oh, it's gonna bounce off this and it has to, but it's more like, well, this is what I know everyone else is watching. And that's going to tell you a lot about, like, okay, then if the market reacts a certain way, this is why the confirmation, like you always preach, the confirmation is so important. Because maybe the line works, maybe it doesn't. If the line doesn't work, the market is telling you that a lot of people who have been watching that line are about to start selling or whatever, or buying because the line broke.
I mean, right
And
now is a perfect example of that. We're sitting
oh
right on the
yeah,
200-day moving average and all these indices. It bounced right off it on Friday, and look what's going on.
yeah,
So,
it's
you
most
know,
watched thing out there right now.
and by the way, going back to the things that you said you went through, while I don't do technical analysis, right? I do look at it.
Of
I am,
course.
just like you say, I am paying attention to these levels and this and that, and I do actually watch some videos over the course of the day of people that are talking about technical analysis, just because, like you say, I want to know what they're thinking, right? I don't trade off of macro, right? But I pay a lot of attention to macro. First of
Yeah.
all, my love, economics, as sick as that
Hmm.
is the first thing that I ever found in my schooling that was of interest to me. I was a
Yeah.
horrible student in high school. I didn't care. I got to college. I took economics, and right away, I liked it for whatever reason, right? It made sense to
Hmm.
me. I liked it. And I became a good student because of that, because now I was learning something I wanted to learn, right? Um, so I do pay a lot of attention to the macro. I find it fascinating. I find it interesting. I don't really trade off of it. We always say never go full macro, right? But it can help. You know what I mean? All
Yeah.
these things can help incrementally. Technical analysis, macro, whatever else,
Hmm.
or things you have in your toolbox, right?
Yeah.
It can help, right? Especially when a bunch of them can line up, right?
Hmm.
Being contrarian, looking at, all these things can help. So I think that's an important point too. I'm not here to bag everything that's not, Jason Shapiro's process, right? I'm here to say the more things you understand and know, the better off you are.
You have to be able to incorporate the right parts of that into your process. That's I think the key, you know, not putting all your eggs into, oh, well, this line broke, but making it a part of the process, not just the only part of the process.
Right. This line broke, so the market's probably going down while the psychology is way too bearish, the positioning is way too bearish, the macro is, at least the outlook of the macro is way too bearish, is different than this line broke, so the market's probably going down, and people are way too long, and people are way too bullish.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a difference there.
Yep.
You got to know that. But in order
Yeah.
to know that, you have to be paying attention to all these pieces of the puzzle. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome, Justin. It's really awesome. It's great to hear your story. I'm sure a lot of people have similar stories, and it's just great to hear it. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
Um, just that I think the thing that has been the most important for me right now is remove as much of me from the process as possible. So I live tested all of 2024 a trend following strategy because I was like, if this is up to me, if this is up to Justin to make decisions, discretionary decisions, it's going to fail. So, made a strategy and then tested it all of 2024 and just trend following, and it was on par with the market for last year. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so I'm saying that not to plug me, obviously, but it's more of the find a way to systematize and stay disciplined to a strategy that works over time. And I think that the overtime part, not just at the time, but over time, like you always say, is the biggest thing. So if you can find that system and stick to it, be disciplined to it, then your chances of success are much higher than not.
Amen.
I One of my favorite things that you've said is when people ask you in the interview question, they say, "What would you recommend to somebody who wants to get into this business?" You always say, "Go be a lawyer." Because this is really hard. And I think some people come in because they think I'm going to get rich quick. I'm going to become a millionaire, rather than I'm going to put my money to work and I'm going to do it in a way that is sustainable over time, that is going to grow over time. And I think that's the mindset people need to have, not the lottery mindset.
All right, good. Well, appreciate your time, man. Great stuff. Well,
Yep.
thanks.
Thanks,
We
Jason.
will